No, I love that Bible verse. Oh, sorry, I'm trying something different, so we'll see how I go. I'm trying to save paper, so we'll see if I can use a tablet. If not, and the sermon's really bad, I'm gonna blame the tablet just so everyone knows. But no, it's awesome to share with you guys. It was awesome last week to have Naomi share with us and look at storage and kind of unpack that idea for us. And it's, yeah, awesome to get up here and keep going on with our series called More Rooms. And I really loved how Naomi talked about last week how we're meant to follow Christ with open hands. And by doing that, that's how we store up our treasures in heaven. And I think that was something she said that just really stuck with me this week and really encouraged me. So I hope was moments of gold in that message that you took with you throughout the week. But this week we're continuing our series of More Rooms, and we're looking at the idea of ownership. So what I mean by that is I don't mean ownership like owning up for your actions. So like if I don't know, punch Kim in the arm, owning up that I punched Kim in the arm, which I wouldn't do because Kim could punch me back harder, so I would never do that. But I'm talking about ownership like owning property and owning land and owning your car and that kind of stuff. Because I've been wrestling with this idea for a moment, and I guess I've been thinking, do we ever truly own anything? Because as Naomi said last week, when we die, we can't take anything with us. So it's not like, you know what, I own my little blue Mazda that I've had for ages, but if I die, it's not following me to heaven. I don't get to take it with me. Someone else is going to get it, if it's still alive and still works. Or someone else will sell it and get money. Or it'll get taken to the, junkyard, great, whatever it is, wreckers, where they just wreck it and take the parts that work. So I've been wondering, do we really own anything? And I want to look at the definition of ownership, which is this. So ownership, if you didn't know, is a noun. But it's the act, state, or right of possessing something. So I'll read it again. The act, state, or right of possessing something. And I think this definition, if we sit with it long enough and we sit with those words, it makes us ask, do we ever truly own anything? Because in our Bible reading we looked at this morning, it's pretty clear that I think to own and possess something, you have to be the one who's like in full authority over it, right? Full control. But we kind of don't have that when we read Genesis. So I want to read it again with you guys because I think we get a good idea about ownership. So if you want, I'm going to read verses 26 to 27, and this is what it says. Oh, I can't read on that. Oh, I'm going to try it. Then God said, "Let us make man in our own image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over the livestock, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps on the earth." So God created man in his own image. In the image of God, he created him. Male and female, he created them. Let's keep going. Goes on to say, "And God blessed them, and God said to them, 'Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the heavens, and over every living thing that moves on the earth.' And God said to them, 'Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with the seed in its fruit. You shall have them for food. And to every beast of the earth, and to every bird of the heavens, and to everything that creeps on the earth, everything that has the breath of life, I have given every green plant for food.' And it was so. And God saw everything that he had made, and behold, it was very good. And there was evening, and there was morning, the sixth day." Now that verse is interesting to me because I think if we look at verse 26, we read about this idea of dominion. It might say something different in your translation, but I know the translation I had, the ESV, it says dominion, which is just interesting to me. Because I think dominion and ownership are two different things. It didn't blink, all right? It worked the whole time, Karen, don't chuckle. And I think it's interesting because ownership belongs to God, if we're honest. Everything is on lease to us. And we're asked to be good stewards. Because dominion, in my eyes, is more like stewardship. It's like power given. Someone's given me power or right over that. Ownership's like full authority over all. No one gave it to me. I just own it. And I don't think we really ever own anything. Because ownership belongs to God, and we're just asked to be good stewards. Which makes me ask, will we be good stewards? Are we going to look after the things if we never truly own anything? Am I going to look after? You know, I really learned this as a parent when I first became a parent. It's still a shock that someone let a 19-year-old me with a messy afro, and I probably had my neon green shoes on or something wild, and they let me walk out with a baby out of a hospital. So I don't know why they did that. But when I became a parent, it became obvious, like, I look after my kids, but I don't own them. One day they're going to grow up. One day they're going to make their own choices. One day they could say, I want nothing to do with you, Dad. One day they could want to talk to me about their life choices, but I don't own them. They're on lease to me. I'm stewarding them for a time. And I guess I was wondering with our world is, do we see us being good stewards with our world today? Do we see good stewardship of money? Medicine, with the COVID vaccine and all that kind of stuff. Do we see good stewardship with that? Do we see good stewardship with natural resources? Is every family today getting to have a good plate of breakfast or lunch? Or does it depend where we live? Are we looking after the natural resources? And I think if we're honest, we're not being good stewards of the earth. There was a recent report, it's the ICCP report, so I could tell you what the acronym meant, but it's escaped me now. But it's this report that's been making the rounds. If you Google it, you can find it. But it's a report about climate change. And it's a report about the state of, our world. And it's a large group of scientists. And it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like we've done a good job looking after our world and being good stewards. And I'm not mentioning this to bring up any debate. I don't care where you stand on that issue. I think we can look out and see we're not being good stewards to our world. When I can go into the shops and I could buy anything I want for lunch. But if I'm in Africa, it's luck of the draw. It's what's around. Maybe I might not get lunch and breakfast. Or maybe I'll have to give up my dinner so my kids can eat. I think we can see those things and see, hey, we're not looking after our world. And I believe we really need to change. And we need to follow the example of a little boy and what he chose to do with his lunch after listening to Jesus in the Gospel of John. So this story happens in the Gospel of John, and it happens in chapter 6, verses 1 to 15. And I just want to read this with you guys because I think there's something in it for us. I think there's something we can learn and something we can do to follow this example. When we realize we don't really own anything, everything's on lease for us, it can help us be a better stewards. So let's dive in. And this is what it opens up with. After this, Jesus went away to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, which is the Sea of Tiberias. And a large crowd was following him because they saw the signs that he was doing on the sick. Jesus went up on the mountain, and there he sat down with his disciples. Now, the Passover, the feast of the Jews, was at hand. Lifting up his eyes, then, and seeing that a large crowd was coming towards him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread so that these people may eat?" He said this to test him, for he himself knew what he would do. Philip answered, 200 denarii worth of bread would not be enough for each of them to get a little. Now that word denarii, that's just like a currency back then. Best way to imagine it, it's like a day's wage. So he's kind of saying, look, 2 days worth of a wage isn't going to get enough for these people. Do you see how many people there are? Let's keep reading. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they for so many?" Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." Now there was much grass in the place. I think that's pretty good. I like how John puts in that there's grass in the place, like they got a nice spot to sit, which is pretty good. A nice picnic. Must have been pretty comfy. It would have been bad if there was lots of rocks. I could only imagine trying to sit on pointy rocks and have lunch. So it's good to know they were comfy. But it goes on. So the men sat down, about 5,000 in number. So just to pause there too, that's just the men. Children, women aren't included in that number. Jesus then took the loaves and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated. So also the fish, as much as they wanted. And when they had eaten their fill, he told his disciples, "Gather up the leftover fragments, that nothing may be lost." So they gathered them up and filled 12 baskets with fragments from the 5 barley loaves left by those who had eaten. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they said, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." Perceiving then that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, Jesus withdrew again to the mountain by himself. Well, it's just a side note, that last bit, like, if people are going to try to make me king, I don't know if I'd run away from it. I'd be like, "Yep, give me all the power, But that would probably be a disaster. But I like how Jesus kind of sneaks away. He knows this is about to happen. But what I love about the story more than anything is the little boy. Like, have we ever sat to think there had to be other people on that day? It says that Passover was coming. There was a big feast. People must have known they were going to need food at some point. It's hard to believe that this little boy was the only one who had some food on him. Maybe he was. Maybe his mom was like better than all the other moms around. Who knows? But doesn't seem likely. But I love how this little boy, in his innocence, realizing, hey, I got some food. It doesn't really belong to me, so I could share it. Offers his food. And doing this leads to Jesus performing a miracle that's so incredible, he has to sneak away from them, or else they're going to force him to be king. Like, that's pretty intense, right? It's a pretty amazing moment that all started from a little boy with his lunch. A little boy having his lunch and having the willingness to see it doesn't truly belong to him. Being willing to loosen his grip. And I think that's something we can learn. We can loosen our grip, or loosen your grip, because it doesn't belong to you anyways. You can't take anything with you when you die. I can, leave stuff for my kids and all that kind of thing, but there's only so long. I can't control what they do. Me and my dad were joking this week because he was talking to me about his will, because he's turning 62, and his mom passed away at 62, and grandpa wasn't too far after that, so he's trying to get everything in order, which I always joke and say you're living till 100, but so he's working on that, and he asked me, he said, "What do you want? What's something of mine you want?" And I was thinking, my dad likes really weird stuff sometimes. He gets like big spatulas, like a statue of a big spatula. He'll have that. Or like a big clock. I don't understand it. I'd love that kind of stuff, but I was like, that's going to be, if I'm still here in Australia, I don't know how we're going to get that here. I can't do that. So I said, what about your comics? Because my dad's got all these old comics, like some of the first Spider-Man comics and stuff. And he goes, oh, yeah, that'd be good. And he kind of asked what I'd do with them. And I said, I just want to keep them. They'd be a memory of you. I'd keep them. I'd get them out and read them. Oh, that's good. I was worried whoever I left them to might just sell them because they're worth a bit of money. So, you could sell them and make a little bit. I was like, no, I don't want to do that. And I joked and said, I'd pass it down to my kids, but, who knows? By the time it gets to the third generation, they might be like, why do I have these silly comics? I'm going to sell these. And I was like, well, at least they do. They make a lot of it. But the whole point of that story is my dad doesn't own them. Even if I get them at one point, I'm not going to own them. It's only going to be on lease for me for a time. And I think this simple truth can be life-changing in how we live our life. And it can help us be more giving. Sorry. Because everything belongs to God, who is the divine creator, who asks us to steward God's creation. That's what we read in the creation story. To steward this planet, its resources, the things that we're blessed with, because it's all on lease. And that's a big thing to take in. That's a big thing to do, to loosen our grip a bit. But I guess, will we loosen our grips to allow a heart of giving to flourish? Because that's something I think the world needs. Especially COVID time, everyone seems to be tightening their grip more on the things that they own. This is mine. But it's not really ever ours. It's all on lease. It all belongs to God. And I think the world is longing for a church, for Christians who are rooted in a heart of giving, that can loosen their grips. Doesn't mean we never own anything or, we never try to buy a house. I'm still trying to buy a house. Hopefully one day, fingers and toes crossed, we pull it off. But who knows? But I hope one day if I ever do get blessed with a house, I realize that ultimately, even if I paid all off, that house doesn't ever really, truly belong to me. I don't own it. I'm just a steward. I'm a good steward. I get to make the house a home for a season. But it won't always be there. It could change. Because me and Kim will get older and, one day we'll die, which, I'll probably go before Kim because I don't want to be here after. That's too much pressure to look after things. So God can take me first. But whenever that happens, right, I don't get to take the house. I don't get to control it. My kids do. So am I going to loosen my grip with my home if I ever own a home? Or with the home that I rent now? If there's a capacity where I could help someone, I could give hope and love and grace and mercy to someone, and it's within my means, am I going to do it? And I think we got to loosen our grip on things to be able to. Oh, that's the last one. Because the world's waiting. It's waiting to see us living a life that's different. And I'm ready to start seeing it within the church, within Christians. And I think it starts from us loosening our grip and being good stewards, realizing that nothing belongs to us. It belongs to God. We're just asked to look after it for a time. And I want to do my part looking after it. And I think if we can do that, it allows a heart of giving to flourish, to bless others, to bring people closer to God, to experience His love and His grace. And I hope we're able and willing to do that, because it's scary to do that kind of stuff. It's scary to loosen our grips. But I think if we're able to, God can move so much more. So I'm just going to close in prayer before the worship team comes back up to lead us in one more song. God, I just thank you for who you are. I thank you for your love and for your grace. I thank you for this beautiful world and everything in it. I thank you for all the blessings that you've given us. The way you've helped us, use the natural resources and create resources like, telephones and screens and all these cool things. Because I love shiny things, God. So I'm really glad there's shiny things around. But I thank you so much for everything you've blessed us with. I pray that you help us as followers of Christ remember that nothing really belongs to us. It all belongs to you. And we're just stewards. Help us to loosen our grips so a heart of giving can flourish and so people can be impacted by your love and by your grace. And so that we can move with your Spirit. In the mighty name of Jesus, I pray these things. Amen.